The Evil Within. This isn't gonna be pretty. The Evil Within is a third-person survival horror game where you play as Detective Sebastian investigating the scene of a mass murder at a mental hospital, and then all of a sudden things start going crazy. I don't want to spoil the story, but the game setting is actually a pretty cool twist. But for the most part, at least in the beginning, the game mixes setting and scenery up. In fact, the first half of this game is great, and guaranteed this game a spot on my Game of the Year list when the time came. But its position in that list was drastically affected the deeper I got into it. As a survival horror game, you're managing your health with pickups. Your health will regenerate, but only slightly, and when your health is below a certain point, you move slowly and aren't able to run. This game is a bit like Alone in the Dark. You have weapons here. As you progress the game, you'll get a pistol, a shotgun, sniper rifle, a crossbow-like weapon. There are grenades, a great variety of weapons for survival, and decent drop rate for ammo. Not too little, not too much, just enough to keep you staying careful with what you use. Enemies are spongy though, not killed by headshots all the time, and just because they're down doesn't mean they're out. You carry around matches and are able to catch bodies on fire just to be sure, but close enemies catch on fire as well, so these matches can be quite the useful weapon if you're out of ammo. But you could always just melee the enemy 1,000 times and pray you don't get killed while doing it. Unique for most survival horror games is that there's an Assassin's Creed like stealth mechanic where you can take out most unaware enemies from behind. You also have to stealth to disarm traps and get parts to craft crossbolts for your bow. But the run and stealth button are the shoulder buttons right next to each other. And as you would guess, this is going to lead you to occasionally running into traps when you mean to crouch by them. There are also jars of brain juice around the levels and off of enemies that act as currency you use to upgrade your stats, buy ammo, and increase the stats of your weapons. There are mirrors that take you back to the hospital where you do this. This is basically a safe room and it allows you to save the game as well, but the game does occasionally autosave. The first half of this game I found to be really enjoyable and terrifying. I was stressed in a good way, and enemies put up a great challenge. Missions were varied. I felt like I was in a movie. And then halfway through the game it starts to fall apart. The game goes from being scary to just frustrating. It becomes an anxiety fest of dealing with insta-kill enemies and resource draining section after resource draining section, dealing with spongy bosses, having to throw switch after switch, doing it multiple times in the same area to progress further. The game's initial near-perfect pacing crumbles and stumbles to a crawl, of dealing with way too many enemies, turning more into an action third-person shooter. Made worse by this game's awful checkpoint and autosave system. The game doesn't constantly autosave once you find an important item, or even when you make a decent amount of progression. And again, there are cheap insta-kill enemies and moments in this game. They're sometimes completely random. They'll hit you and you have to go through the 10 minutes of recollecting supplies over and over until you get lucky enough to either get away or not activate this random spawn. And also again, the second half of this game is focused more on anxiety than it is horror. And it's filled with these moments and trial and error chases with no indication of what you have to do, so you just have to keep doing it until you get it right with no checkpoints. It's not fun replaying these anxiety filled moments and sections. They aren't even fun the first time, but still I pushed forward. I was overlooking all the bad because of the intriguing story going through this anxiety fest. The game would freeze on me a couple of times, causing me to restart it. No big deal, I'll forgive it. The first half was so good and I'm so close to this game's end. 8.5 hours into the game, I'm on chapter 11 out of 15, a little less than 3 hours away from this game's credits, and I run into a game-breaking bug. That's right, 3 years later, a Bethesda game, go figure, still has a game-breaking bug in it. I did play the PS3 version of this game and thought that's clearly the problem. So I went to Google and no, this particular chapter is full game-breaking bugs. More than just the one that I ran into that wouldn't let me progress the game. I was an hour deep and nothing I did helped. Shutting down the game, reloading checkpoints, dying, nothing. The game wouldn't let me progress. The only thing keeping me from just giving this game a 0 and walking away is that restarting the chapter could have probably let me continue, or at the very least restarting multiple times would eventually let me continue. But once more, the second half of this game is filled with anxiety, frustration, and cheapness. I wasn't about to go through that hour I just went through again, especially with no guarantees I'd be able to move on. This one hurts so much because I was enjoying my time with this game. Without bugs, this game could have been an easy 7 or even a 7.5 for me. Reality though is that this game is broken and you're rolling the dice on whether or not you'll even be able to complete it with the purchase. With Bethesda's name attached though, I guess I can't be too surprised that this is the case. I'm walking away from what I thought was initially a great game that crumbled into a good game but left me with the taste of a bad game. I give The Evil Within a very generous 4 out of 10. If you played The Evil Within, tell me what you thought about it down in the comment section below. If you haven't played it, tell me if you plan on picking it up. Thumbs up. If you liked the video, subscribe if you're new to the channel. And thanks for watching.